Hello, everybody. This is Hades, and this is another episode of Anatomy of Sci-Fi Starcraft subsection. Today, with me, I have Zappy.
Hello.
And Brutaxilos.
Hello.
And today's topic is the ominous Dark Templar. So, DT is this sneaky little cloaked unit from the Protoss race that, if undetected, can wreak havoc on your mineral line or, worse, your army. And its most famous property is the fact that it can cloak. So, Zappy, any word on the invisibility power?
Well, I generally tend to think that the DT tech is largely gravity-based, which means that for the case of the cloaking, they're probably bending light around them gravitationally. What this would do is the way you see things normally is light reflects off of them and then hits your eyes, and then there you go, you see it. Whereas if the DTs use their gravity such science things to bend the light around them, it won't bounce off of them at you. It will come from, say, behind them, and you'll see the ground behind them instead of them themselves.
So it moves the light around it, like kind of in this like a bump wave sort of. It goes straight, goes around, returns to its original vector.
Yeah.
And how what are possible ways to achieve that? Like water bends light in its own way.
Sorry, say that again.
Like you know how like you have an aquarium and you look at it from one side and you look at it from another. It bends the light in a way.
Right.
Is there any other material that does that, or is there a way to get water particles to behave that way around a physical object?
All right, so what you're talking about is a property called diffraction, or diffraction?
Refraction, maybe.
Refraction, yes. And what that is it's a function of the difference of the speed of light in the two mediums. So what you would do if we were trying to do it that way would be to cover the Dark Templar in a substance that will slow down the light, or will slow down the light enough that it'll bend around them. The problem with that is that it needs to be very precise. It would be hard to get something that will work at 360 degrees all of the time. But I mean, that's the challenge. If it was easy, we'd be doing it.
Yeah. Well, then again, Protoss are way ahead of us in technology. Cop out, but that is a good argument to have. We did see people try to imitate kind of invisibility by having cameras on one side and an LCD screen on another, but I don't think that's what really happens. It's more of a cloak. So maybe that's just like a cloak of light dispersion or something like that. Would you say it's better to bend the light around the unit, or to absorb light from one direction and emit the same exact count of light from another?
It's far easier to bend it around. To absorb it on one side and then emit it on the other, you have to have some sort of pairing on one side that will emit the other. So like you'd have to have fiber optic cables running around the entire thing, taking in the light from one side and spitting out the other. You'd have to have a series of cameras, very small video screens that go from one side to the other. Whereas if you try to bend the light, it granted would be more difficult for us, but I think for the Protoss it'd be
maybe not so much LCDs. Well, maybe not so much LCDs, but maybe kind of like a miniature warp, like it teleports the particle just in front of the High Templar and Dark Templar, just in front of it, and re-teleports it back behind it, keeping the same vector. Or well, then again, that might use too much energy.
Is a little bit dangerous or excessive.
Yeah, that might be a bit too much. I think just bending the light would be better. So maybe they carry some kind of like a gravity beacon that, well, not, I don't want to speak magic, but let's just assume like a gravity beacon that affects light and just light, and it kind of curves it in a way, like kind of when you see a black hole, it bends the light around it, something like that, but it's limited in some kind of an energy spectrum where it affects just the photons.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
Is there some way to affect light but not physical matter?
Not that I am aware of. There are theories about things like dark matter, which, I mean, granted, most people don't think it would work like that, but there is always the possibility we don't know very much about it, so it could work that way. There are particles that interact gravitationally but don't interact electromagnetically, which is the way that we touch things. You know, the way we interact with most of the stuff that we interact with on a day-to-day basis is through the electromagnetic interaction. And particles like neutrinos don't interact that way. So if they had like some sort of massive neutrino pileup, that might work. But then there's a whole bunch of difficulties of containing something like that. And on top of that, if you have a large gravitational field like that, there are other consequences too. Just namely, you have a giant ass gravitational field centered at you at all times. Like, it'd make you really easy to spot. You'd be like, all the rocks over there are moving towards that
well, that's why I said, is there a way to affect light and just light and not things with mass, let's say? Because I think light doesn't have mass, or... Wait, I think it does, because I heard something like that. Does it have mass? I don't even know.
Hold on, keep going.
I don't know. Let's say... I've heard about this
experiment. See how wrong you can be.
Okay, well... If light doesn't have mass, then maybe a black hole wouldn't attract it. So I guess light has mass.
No.
No? No. Okay, so now I'm completely confused.
People, now, to back this up, one, according to the theory of relativity, it doesn't. And on top of that, people have tried to detect the mass of light, and they've gotten it down to, like, it has, at the very least, it's, like, less than 1 times 10 to the 17th grams.
Yeah, I heard that, like, when there's light shining on you, you're actually being pushed a little.
Right, now that is E equals mc squared. The light has energy, so therefore it has mass, but it doesn't have a rest mass, which is generally what people refer to when they say mass. A rest mass is if it's not moving, it has this much mass. The mass that light has, it has because it's moving, and light is also light because it is moving. Light cannot not be moving. At least as far as we know. Okay, so Eric, you understood any of that?
Kind of, but I dozed off a little bit, so. Well, I understand like about the wave particle duality of light and stuff. But yeah.
So cloaking is kind of like confusing. I'm obviously not a physics expert. Zappy is, at least in my eyes. So bending light, any feasible way of doing it other than having a miniature black hole that makes rocks go after you and make you easy to spot?
Right, so let me start with the obvious, and we'll move to the more obscure. The obvious answer is, I don't know. If I knew how to make a cloaking field point for point exactly,
Nobel Prize.
I'd be a very rich man. All right.
Yeah, we went over
doing
that.
This, okay. I'd be on, you know, you know what? I'd probably be hiding in a bunker somewhere. That's honestly what would be happening.
I'd be in a girl's locker room. I'm just saying.
You'd be doing that. All right. But
well, who wouldn't? Be honest with yourself, guys.
The way that I would do it, if I were to attempt this, would be some means of bending the light around you. Be that through, coating yourself in some layer of dense material that will absorb the light, or that will refract the light away from you. Or, some, like, you could imagine a situation whereby you have a series of different density layers covering your skin, for instance, that would bend the light away from you. And that's actually similar to something I'm sure everybody's familiar with, where you're driving down the road and you kind of see a reflection on a hot day. You'll see a reflection down the road. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. It kind of looks like there's no horizon.
Right. And that's the same kind of deal, except with that, what that is it's layers of progressively cooler air as you go up. So the air right next to the concrete is really hot. And then as you go up, it gets colder. And what that does is it bends the light away from the concrete. So what you see is not the concrete, but something reflected from where the concrete is. So you could try to do something with that. You could try to bend it gravitationally, but there's some problems with carrying around that much mass. You'd have to be pretty buff to carry around that much weight. Yeah, the DTs do not strike me as the heavy lifters of the Protoss. Maybe Immortals. I mean, you never know. Maybe they've got some sort of psionic steroids that they're using. I'm sorry. No, let's take... We have enough room in episode 2 actually analyze this bullshit. Psionic steroids? I'm not the biology expert here, all right? Maybe there are psionic steroids, all right? It's like...
Wow, just psionic steroids.
They could be okay. Yeah, you know what?
Guys, just
they're
absorb
also
this.
alive for like millions and millions of years or whatever. They could be working out and juicing for that amount of time, and they'd be pretty jacked by the end of it. All right.
None can withstand the Templar.
That's all I'm saying.
Oh my god. No, that's... Wow, that's gonna be one of our terms.
Psionic steroids. Maybe
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah, next time we're doing a Protoss episode, I'll just keep that in the back of my head. Oh, okay, so the reason why a carrier has so much health is because the pilot is taking psionic steroids.
He's juicing, man.
Yeah, he's packing heat. Oh, actually, he's not packing heat because the carrier is so big, so he has to compensate. Oh, wait, no, because that's how steroids work. Yeah, that makes sense now. It all fits together. He's taking psionic steroids, it shrinks his genitalia, and he has to drive a gigantic spaceship to compensate for his little male Protoss winging. Sorry to break your heart, Zappy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Why are you going with the carrier for that? We were talking about the DT using steroids so that he could carry around a giant amount of weight. The guy flying the carrier doesn't have to carry around anything because he's got a giant-ass ship to do it for him.
Well, he still wants to look good for the ladies, no? I mean, he's long-distance single, I think. Just saying. Okay, this guy's
got a giant carrier, all right? You drive up to a bar in a tank, you're gonna get laid. That's just how tanks work, all right? Carrier is like tank times 1,000.
Yeah, guys, if you think your motorcycle is badass, try to imagine having a carrier. Alright, not much about the DT. I mean, it's just a zealot that's invincible and, well, and uses the dark void powers. And its other signature thing is the warp side blade thing that he has. Well, no, it's not side blade, it's warp blade, right?
Yeah,
it's warp blade, so it's different. And it wouldn't be so interesting, except, and I'm a Zerg player, so this is a big deal for me, that is the only Protoss weapon, as far as we know, that can actually kill a Cerebrate or an Overmind. And my theory is, and Zappy, go ahead to jump on this as soon as I finish talking, is that, you know how the High Templar's feedback works? Kind of like I talked earlier with you guys. When you pour gasoline onto a fire, the fire will run up through the stream into the tank. Kind of like when you're pissing on an electric fence, the electricity will reach you if the stream is steady enough. So maybe there's this like feedback thing caused by the warp blade that ran up throughout the whole circuit of the Cerebrate. Maybe the reason they regenerate is because as long as there's one part of the nervous system, it can regenerate. But if you feedback the whole system, yeah.
I really like that analogy. I think that's a...
Which one, the gasoline or the pissing on a fence?
The one where you have a electric current, and the warp blade can like somehow go through the entire system and destroy it completely.
Yeah, but it's not electricity so much like
that
maybe
is kind of
feedback.
like a pseudoscience though. But I like that analogy and how to describe it, and I'm sure that's possible, like on how that works.
Yeah,
I have a
because it
problem
reaches the
with
whole
this
place.
analogy. Now, granted, I may not be, you know, the representative, you know, listener or nerd out there, but, you know, I don't have a lot of first-hand experience with either pissing on a fence that's electrified or pouring gasoline onto a burning fire. I can honestly say that I've experienced that firsthand once, and that hardly qualifies me to be able to judge your analogy accurately.
Well, what happens is, you know, liquids, I mean water at least, conducts electricity.
Well, hold on. First, I think we need to address, have you done this before yourself? How many times in the past
No, don't put this on me.
Have you pissed on an electric fence?
Zero, but I've watched
Okay, then I'm going to have to call into question your
episode.
use of this analogy.
Because I watched the Mythbusters episode where they tested it. It's like, oh, there's this story about the guy who pissed on an electric fence and he died.
So you saw it on TV one time and you're like, I got it.
I mean, well, come on, if you drop it, it's... Well, I understand the physics of it. I mean, you drop a toaster into a bathtub, you know, the water it conducts electricity. I imagine urine is mostly water. So, you know, same physics, really, no? Like, if you have a stream of water, you know, and it's coming down on, like, a high electric source, then you wouldn't want to touch it.
Water is actually a pretty poor conductor. It's the impurities in the water that are the conductor. That would make it shock you.
Okay, so maybe... Imagine any liquid that conducts electricity better than water.
All right. So back to this analogy of the whole feedback mechanism. I mean, I've got no better competing theory, and I have no specific reason to say why it wouldn't work, so I guess we go with it.
It's kind of like we're explaining science with weird bits of science, you know? We're explaining magic with weird bits of science.
Well, you're using one thing that is semi-known and then applying it to a more broader scale, which is pseudoscience.
Eric, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Well, I followed the lore a long time ago, and it's not really a science, but I remember, I think it was Chris Metzen who described the difference between a warp blade and a side blade, and he said, quote unquote, side blade is from like a power from within, and the warp blade is the power from without. So it's like it's void based.
So maybe it just drains everything, like it's negative energy and big. It's like maybe you have like a bucket, and you make a hole anywhere in that bucket, all the water drains.
I guess so.
So maybe it's like a feedback, where it just puts like a negative particle, and that negative particle spreads. Or trying to make sense of it. Jesus.
Yeah, I don't think this is actually.
It's like negative energy that spreads throughout the whole neural network.
Magic, and there's not really any way we can actually bring it up with science.
No, damn it!
Right, like
that's what we're here for.
I'm gonna say this whole line of thought is essentially magic. I don't see any way that I can try to scientifically explain what you're talking about. I mean, we've tried to talk about the warp blades before, to be fair, but the general consensus is that it's some sort of gravitational-based containment system of either a laser or some other cutting thing, and then by that it slices and whatnot. But that in no way applies to what you're talking about. So,
yeah, I don't know, like. Well, the feedback is like the most efficient and the best explanation I can have, because it reaches every part. Like feedback itself, it just reaches.
Right. It explains in the universe how it might work, but we don't know what feedback is.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we have to do an episode on feedback itself, because we explain how the warp blade kills a cerebit, then we explain it because it's a feedback. Then we have to explain what feedback is. Then once we explain what feedback is, there might be another part of science we have to explain. So it's a multi-parter.
Until we know that, or what feedback is, we can't really reference it then. You know what I mean? Like, it's like saying, I don't know how a car works, but since a car can move, then therefore a boulder must be able to move also. Because they're both large, tough objects.
Yeah, but if we do explain feedback in the future, let it just be said that this could be the way to do it.
And it satisfies this requirement, then it could be.
What's a type of feedback?
Until then, I think we're just waving our hands and kind of guessing.
Yeah, which is the best we can do with this kind of magic bullshit. Alright, so do we cover everything? I think, like, cloaking and warp blade, that's all the Dark Templar has, which is, well, it's still a big deal in the game. I mean, the warp blade does so much damage, and the fact that it's permanently cloaked, that really adds to the game, but I don't think there's anything else. So we might do how it morphs into an Archon, but that might be for the High Templar, no?
I mean, I don't know what morphs into an Archon.
Yeah, well...
It's biology.
Is it?
It's not physics.
Well, it's magic then.
Ask Steve about reverse mitosis, and then we'll see where we get.
Yeah, basically the High Templar and the Dark Templar are sperm for the sperm and an egg.
It is possible, technically, for two organisms to merge into one. That's not a
fusion. Ha! Yeah,
that's right? Not like science. I mean, it exists in our days now.
No, I think it's more.
Wait, hold on. I think we're onto something here. Hold on. Now you double check me on this because I'm no expert in biology. But if I remember correctly, plants have two life cycles, right? They've got one where they're like half their genes, and the other one where they're full genes. Could it be that the Archon is like the full gene tree, whereas the fungus or whatever, and then the Templar are like the sperm and egg part?
Guys, I'm sorry to bust your bubble, but the way they explained it in lore is that the two guys are sacrificed in order to warp in the Archon from the fucking Ether. It's not like they're genetically...
No, hold on. We're on to something, all right? We know they're photosynthetic, which means they could be plants, all right? They could be plants.
They do say like Archon refers to himself as we, and I think there was like they share memories and stuff of the Templars, so I think it would actually emerge. It wouldn't be a sacrifice.
Oh dear, we went from bullshit to full retard bullshit. Okay, this has been the.
I think that was more legit than the other stuff.
This has been the DT episode. I'm Hades.
I'm Zappy.
I'm the other guy.
Yeah, the other guy.
The water gamete guy. And this has been Anatomy of Sci-Fi Starcraft, the Dark Templar. Check out our other episodes, and we'll talk to you later. Peace out, guys.